It's going to be a unique event. For the first time, the Metropole Orkest will play the music of Dweezil and Frank Zappa.
Success!
The Dweezil Zappa Metropole 2025 production has now officially started. Yay, let's go! Please give it up for the one and only Mr. Dweezil Zappa. Just give us a little recap of the last 3 days. How you felt, what you experienced, how you slept.
Sure. Yeah, well, the Metropole Orchestra, as you may have seen if you've seen them play before, they're remarkably talented at learning difficult music, and if you know anything about having to learn difficult music, it's mentally exhausting. And the music that we're going to be playing is complicated, but they play complicated music all the time, and they have to fragment that part of their brain to be able to take in just what they need to do to play what's required on any given day. So when I was talking to them about playing my dad's music and playing the music that we're going to play tonight, they were saying, "Oh, I wish we had more rehearsal," because they enjoy this music, but it's also very challenging, and you have regimented rehearsals, 5 or 6 hours a day, where you have to have all these people be focused for the exact time that's needed because you're on a schedule, and it's the challenge of it is everybody wants to do their best and make this music sound the best that it can be, but it's so hard that it's a tightrope act. Like, we don't know how well any of it will go because it's so hard, but it's also beautiful and fun, and you'll see people having a good time and smiling because they live for this kind of challenge. And so for me, the past few days has been all of what I've been talking about. I'm struggling to be able to play the parts, like maybe it will all come into focus right at the moment where it needs to for what happens on stage. But that's the thing that you as the audience don't know, like what, we go on stage and we're smiling, and then we're like also like in our minds, like full of fear that it's like, we don't know what's going to happen. But it's, that's part of the whole fun of what it is to play live music.
Yeah, and what they really nailed, the Metropole Orkest, is that what you have in common with your father, I think, is that you never write complicated music for the sake of complexity. It's always music. It's always great. And the Black Page is the example.
Yeah.
If you look at it, what is this? But and then you listen to it, it's a great piece of music, and it's not just let's see how technical we can get. And that's also what the Metropole Orkest does. For instance, the drummer, Martijn Fink, he has to play some really complicated stuff that you thought of, but it still has a groove.
Well, yeah, that is an important thing. We talk about it, musicians in general, where as you try to develop your skill on your instrument, or if you're trying to compose things, you want to be able to give people surprises. At least that's what I like in music, is to hear some surprises, things you don't expect. There's all kinds of music that you could enjoy, and simple music is actually sometimes harder to make than complicated music, because it really has to be the foundation of it has to be a very good melody that you want to listen to again.
Yeah.
But when you try to take that idea, like, okay, a good melody, interesting rhythm, and then how do you get people to also take this on and play when it does get complicated, and you're talking about, what is it, 65 people or it's
Around, yeah.
involved in this thing. It's hard to get. My dad has said something similar to this. Imagine if let's say you have 100 people that are going to be playing a piece of music. How hard would it be to get 100 people to show up on time just for dinner? You know, now all these 100 people have to arrive at the downbeat at the same time. You know, so when you write complicated music, everybody has their own internal interpretation of where the downbeat or where the pulse of the music is. So when it's the orchestra, they have the conductor who's trying to show them a uniform way to be able to behave during this musical presentation. So I'm not used to that. I still go, when I play with my band, I'm just going on my internal clock and how I react with the drummer. But I have to like almost sit back much further because there's a delay in the reaction time of watching the baton. So that's a different part of this experience for me. But just generally, you know, I love when people are very good at what they do. I like to just be able to see that unfold. And all the musicians are so good in this orchestra.
Dweezil and I worked together on a classical project, you might call it, with the Noord-Nederlands Orkest, the NNO, where we played some famous pieces by his father, like Bob and Dacron, Sad Jane, Strictly Gentile. And we did arrangements of some of his songs, like Truth and Shampoo Horn and Marmot's Barbarics or something.
Yeah, Marmot's Barbaric.
And we also commissioned Dweezil to write a piece for the NNO called The Adventures of Dindu. And I was really excited to hear the end result because I didn't know what he was going to do. I said, you have 12 minutes and an orchestra. So here's your white canvas, so go for it. And he came up with this beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
But now we hear it in a different version.
Well, it's more detailed and more nuanced with the Metropole, because when I wrote the piece of music, there's sort of like a band perspective within it where there is a kind of a reliance on a groove that would involve the syncopated parts. And so going back to like everybody's watching the conductor, the reaction time is going to be different. Now, if you have things that are supposed to happen, like an entrance here and an entrance there, and it's staggered between instruments, and you want it to have a good feel that's like all comes together, it might not necessarily be that easy to get people in different spaces across the stage to hit their entrances at the exact right time, because it's that delay time. But because of the drummer that you were mentioned in the Metropole, all these musicians are used to playing with more of a rock ensemble, more so than a traditional orchestra.
Oh.
So the nuance and detail of the piece of music is coming together in a way that is great to hear. You know, I mean, I don't get to hear this kind of music played frequently. You know, like Dindu was only ever played that one time.
Yeah.
Well, we did two shows, but
Yeah.
that was 6 years ago or something
Yeah,
like that. So,
at least, yeah.
so I haven't heard it ever performed again. So it's nice to hear it. You know, like
Yeah.
get the dust off and hear what it is. But the piece of music itself, that people have asked me, well, how did you write it? Because I'm not skilled as a person who knows how to notate everything. You know, my dad was very good at that. I never learned. I learn everything by ear. So when I wrote the piece of music, there's a way to write music on a computer. Some of you may know, but essentially there's this thing called MIDI, which allows you to basically put in notes on a page, and then virtual instruments can play it back. And so when I was told I had to write a 12-minute piece of music, I didn't really have an idea of what it was going to be. So the way to get started was I just wrote a string of 16th notes, and it just looks like dots, right? So then I can shape it. I can draw it into a contour, and then I can hear what that sounds like. And then I think, well, I like this part, and let me move this, let me do that. And I started writing this piece of music by simply drawing shapes. And then once I found one melody I liked, I would then harmonize it and do this whole thing. So I would do it almost like 30 seconds or a minute at a time of music. So if you look at a timeline like this, okay, I'll do a chunk of this much, but the whole strip of it will have all of the orchestration. And then I can hear that 30 seconds or a minute and go, okay, now where do I want this to go? If I have a theme and I need to recapitulate that theme, I can take that same thing and I can just move it further down the timeline and then fill in the spaces so that I think, okay, well, I want to get back to this theme at this point in time, maybe like a minute later. So I have to, so I would just basically build it by moving sections around after having composed bits. And so when you hear it, it sounds like you're going on a journey, like you're watching an audio movie. But that's how I made this piece of music. I never even picked up a guitar or any instrument. I just did it on the computer, and now I hear it with real people playing it, and it's pretty fun.
And if I may zoom in on that, is that there's a very nice conceptual continuity link here between your father, Steve Vai, and you, because both of them said that they started composing because they thought that music looked good on paper.
Yeah.
So when you describe the whole process of what you did with those shapes, and Frank once said that when he plays a solo, in his mind he saw geometrical figures.
Yeah.
He would actually see geometrical figures that he followed as a soloist. So it's all conceptual continuity. Raise your hand if you know what conceptual continuity is.
Yes, it's thematic in my dad's music.
Yeah, themes that pop up, things that can happen all the time for no reason at all.
Right.
Yeah. So the conductor is not only is the Metropole Orkestra fantastic, but the conductor is a very strange, lucky prize from the lottery, because first of all, he's an excellent guitar player. He's really a virtuoso. He has his own band in Finland. Second of all, he's a great classical conductor. Third of all, he's the guy that does all the orchestra projects that I do with Steve Vai. And he's a Zappa expert, not only a Frank Zappa expert, but also he knows everything Dweezil ever did. So we have a connoisseur in front of the orchestra who knows what Zappa DNA is. So that's a very nice situation there. What did you learn this week?
Well, I've learned a lot of things this week, but the challenge always when playing with the orchestra for me is I just still have to find a way to sit back, and I have to look away from the guitar to watch the conductor sometimes, which is not easy for me because the things that I'm used to doing, I'm just used to focusing on what is required for me to do it. So, there's a lot of challenges in playing the music, but at the same time, I want to enjoy it. I want to be able to hear it and see people in the orchestra having fun, So at the end of the day, an experience like this, it doesn't come around often. So it's going to be a special night for the music and the whole experience.
Yeah. If after this week I would call you, I'm not going to do this. This is hypothetical. But if I was going to say to you, you can write a 10-minute new piece for one instrument.
For just
a solo
one
piece.
Instrument.
Which one would it be from the band?
Well, I mean, I really, I would, because I play guitar, I'd probably favor like a cello or a violin or something, because it would make the most sense to me. But I love the sound of an oboe, and I love the woodwinds in general. The one thing I did learn from the first time doing the N&O stuff was that you could write music on the computer, and the computer can play it exactly the right rhythms and all that stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have the human quality. But you can also balance the sound and hear it the way that you want. So you could have loud horns and loud string section. But in reality, on stage, when an orchestra really plays, the horns are much louder than the violin or the string section. So if you're composing something and you want loud strings and loud horns at the same time, you're going to have a compromise somewhere. And that's the kind of thing that only if you write and work with an orchestra all the time do you start to learn the nuances and the best way to use the orchestra to do what they're best at. And that's another thing that's really cool with the NNO. I mean, the Metropole versus the NNO is that they have the ability to get the rhythmic stuff a little bit more precise, but then it's all it's the way that the stuff is presented for the audience. It's mic'd up, there's sound reinforcement. So it's more similar to a rock concert in the way that it can be balanced. But, I think it's going to sound really good because of that.
And it's always nice, as I said to Dweezil when we were on the phone a couple of weeks ago, I said, you got to realize that, of course, you have your band with all the logistics, but now we're recruiting a small army. I mean, there's about 70 people working full time just to do that show in Eindhoven, which is really funny always. And the vibe was extremely good. Are there any questions from you, Zappa experts in the hall? Yeah, here's a question. Shall I just come to you? Yeah, I'll hold it.
Okay. Hi. When I was a kid, my dad played violin, my mother piano, and I had to learn to play piano as well. When I grew up, I thought, well, I go my own way, so I picked up the electric guitar.
Oh, nice.
You grew up with a father doing what he always did, but you're doing more or less the same as he did. Did you ever feel the urge to be different?
Well, the thing is, what I saw my dad doing and how he seemed to be enjoying it was something that was like, oh yeah, that would be fun to do too. So I never had a rebellious thing. Like I know a lot of people, it's very common for them to rebel against their parents and want to do something different. But for me, it was, the example was, he really enjoys being creative and writing music and playing guitar and making new sounds. It was like the house was a sound laboratory because the studio was down there in the basement, and it just was fun. So there wasn't anything for me to think, I gotta do something different. But what it was originally, the first thing I was really interested in was I really liked playing baseball. So I was when I was 12, I was playing a lot of baseball, but at that moment in time, that was when I first started to hear other music other than my dad's, because I really never listened to the radio until I was 12, and I started to hear things like Van Halen. And so Van Halen was very popular on the radio, and I thought, wow, this guitar sounds really cool. I got to learn how to do some of this. And then out of nowhere, Edward Van Halen called our house and then was over at our house 20 minutes later. So he somehow got the phone number and talked to my dad and then came over. And it was at that precise moment that I decided I want to play guitar. But yeah, I did have a good chance to be exposed to all kinds of music and stuff. So it seemed like a fun thing to do.
You said somehow we got the phone number. You know how, huh?
I do know it now. Yeah, it was like back then I didn't know, but it was very brief description of the thing was Edward Van Halen was playing with Alan Holdsworth at a little venue called the Roxy, which you guys probably know because of the Roxy and Elsewhere record. And Steve Vai, who was in my dad's band, went to that concert, ended up being able to talk to Edward and said, I work with Frank Zappa. And Edward mentioned something about liking Frank Zappa, wanted to talk to him because he was building a studio and my dad already had a studio. Long story short, they exchanged numbers and Edward then called Steve, but Steve wasn't home. And his roommate just gave Edward my dad's number. And then Steve was concerned that he was going to get fired because he had inadvertently given out my dad's number to someone. But it all worked out.
Yeah. And here we are. The baseball thing is nice if you go online. If you look at the photo shoot that was done for the cover of the album You Are What You Is, there is in the whole photo shoot there's a beautiful pictures of Frank and Dweezil, and you were wearing your yellow.
I was in the Pirates team uniform.
Yeah, those are great pictures. The repertoire. We're not going to give away the whole set list, but was there one song this week that you thought it sounds like a new piece to me now?
Well, there's elements that get reharmonized, so you get to have a feeling of it's again like detail and nuance that brings out the emotion, or it brings out a different way of hearing the song. So, there is one song that's a fully done up like mini rock opera that we will be playing tonight, and that one I think is it's going to be really interesting and fun to see everybody's reaction to, because it musically has challenging things, but it's also got a real rock vibe, and there's some theatrics to it because of the vocal presentation. But
do you remember the first line of the introduction?
Well, if I say that, it'll give away what it is.
Well, yeah, but they won't tell. Yeah. Do you promise you won't tell? Okay, well, let's see let's first see what we have here. He's going to say the first line of the song, and then you have to say what song it is. Okay? Are you ready for that? But don't tell anybody.
But here's the funny part is that it has a monologue, and every time I have to think of the monologue, I always can't think of the first line correctly, and then that makes me stumble. So again, right now I'm already thinking of the wrong word. I'm thinking of saying "in today's modern world," and that's not what it is.
In today's rapidly changing world, musical groups
appear
almost every day.
That's right.
What song is that? Whipping Post.
Yeah, Whipping Post. Hum up a little bit, would you? Yeah.
Sounds like a John Cage composition. Yeah. Okay. No, Punky's Whips is on there, and for Punky's Whips, don't tell anybody outside because I know where to find you. We brought in the singer of Dweezil's band. I never met him in person. We were on the phone a few times, and we saw him at rehearsals, and he is fantastic. He's Zach Tabori. And he's gonna sing that song and another song, which I'm not gonna tell you what it is.
Well, the thing about Zach, and we can do this real quick. He's part of a younger generation of musicians, which was one of the things that the reason I started playing my dad's music was I wanted younger musicians to have a chance to see it live on stage and maybe be inspired to play it. So at 12 years old, Zach saw my band play Punky's Whips by watching a YouTube video. And then years later, he's 26 now and in the band. The first thing he said was, "Can we please play Punky's Whips?" But the way that we were doing it on stage was he would sing it, but he also played drums. We had a double in the band now. Sometimes on certain songs, it's double drums. And so he plays drums and sings. And so it's in this case, he'll do a little bit of percussion as well, but he's very good at transforming himself into Terry Bozzio for the role.
Yeah, and I grew up on that song. When it came out, I heard it for the first time. So this was late '70s, and I was hearing it during the rehearsal, and it sounded really like an opera. It was totally different. It's the song, but it's so enriched with theatrics and the way the band plays it. You're gonna love it, I'm sure. but don't tell anybody, because for most people it has to be a surprise. Because nobody would ever expect the Metropole to play Punky's Rips, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
Dick
think
Bucket.
anybody expects a song like that to exist, period.
That's right, yeah. I know Dick Bakker will be on the phone maandag. So, Ko, what are you doing there in Eindhoven? Dick Bakker is the chief conductor of the Metropole,
Okay.
regular guy. Great guy, by the way. Any more questions? Yes, just say it loud, because I don't want to go up there. First, the one in the back, please. Yes, you.
Yeah, can you hear me like this?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to. I thought it was interesting what you said about like the new generation of musicians, or maybe even music fans hearing it. And what do you feel that the possibilities are in not only keeping it alive, but maybe transferring it to the new generation with their
Well, the challenge of having it get the exposure that your generation would need is it probably needs to be coming from somebody that's closer to your age range, because the stuff that the younger people are listening to generally doesn't have people above 50 in the band. You know, right now I'm the oldest person in my band at 55. And, you know, oftentimes when people, when I started this back in 2006, everybody was like, oh, you have to have the alumni. And I'm like, I don't want the alumni. And the reason is, they're not the only people that can play this music. I wanted younger people to be in the band so that younger people could see younger people on stage playing the music and think, well, that looks like fun. I'd like to explore that. So I always try to keep younger people in the band. But not only that, it's good to show that people that just are very good at what they do and want to be part of a team to play something, you know, and that's really what it's like, what an orchestra is and what it's like to be in the band is you have a role that is defined to play the music. And you need to play what's required to play. And if you're not going to play it the way that's required, then you're not going to be there. And my dad had a phrase for that, which was window or aisle. How would you like to return home? And so the thing is, when I put a band together, I'm always looking for people that have the right attitude and enjoy the music and want to play it in the same way that an orchestra would play it. In the sense, what I'm saying is, like, if you're in the string section, you're just playing that part and you're not going to do something different, you know, and vice versa, you know, all the other parts of the show. But to your question, like, how do we get it to a younger audience? I don't know. I'm doing more stuff on YouTube now, so maybe it will reach more people that way. But other than that, you know, all I can do is just play the music the best that I can play it, and the people that come get to experience it. And, you know, if it's just them, at least they're having a good time.
About the string section that you mentioned, it reminds me of a little anecdote, if you allow me to tell it. Did Steve Vai ever tell you about the Black Page edition from that one drummer?
Well, I don't know. I've seen one that went very badly.
Was that the one who was in a yoga position with the hi-hat? Did he ever tell you that one?
Well, the tickling of the cymbals. Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, then you tell it.
Yeah, so there was a guy that...
You're going to love this story.
So if you are coming to an audition to potentially be in my dad's band, you better know what's happening. You better have prepared. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. But what people used to do was they like to be able to say on their resume that they at least auditioned, because people would think that they were much better than they were, even if they got nowhere near getting the gig. It looked good on your resume. But there was a guy that sat down, and the Black Page was on the stand, you know, the sheet music, and he sat there at the drum kit, and he set himself up, you know, and then he starts tickling the underside of the cymbals like this, and my dad's looking at it, it's like, you know, all right, play the Black Page, and he goes, oh, yeah. All this stuff, and my dad said, you can't read, can you? And he said, oh, no, this is what I'm reading. It's like, get out of here. You know, he immediately was like, this guy has to get out. But imagine that's, you think you're going to impress somebody by tickling the underside of the cymbals. He never played a note. Yeah, it was pitiful. But here's another, good.
But I bet you Frank had a laugh over it afterwards.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, because he would do the impression of the guy. But the thing is, there was another time where there was a musician that was auditioning to play. I think she came in for violin, and my dad said, "Okay, thanks for coming in." And she says, "Oh no, you should really listen to me play piano." He said, "Okay." Gave her some parts to play, and then he said, "All right, thanks for coming in." And so she's like, "Oh no, you really should hear me." And he said, "Well, let me just ask you a question. Have you ever heard the story of the carpenter?" And she said, "No." And he said, "There once was a carpenter, and he built a door, and there it is." Yes.
Are there any more questions? Does anyone dare? There's two there. The first one, you, sir. Yeah.
I remember your dad saying that the hardest thing to do is conducting, because you have to do a bunch of people doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same moment.
Right.
Now, when you're rehearsing with such an orchestra as tonight, don't you feel self being the conductor?
Well, the thing is, I'm not trained to do any of that stuff, so I'm just part of the orchestra. And the hardest part for me is I have very limited experience playing with an orchestra. So for me, being able to actually focus on, at times, looking at the conductor, because I'm not used to looking away from hard stuff that I'm playing. But if there's a very difficult part of a song, I have to really internalize that thing and know that I can play it well enough that if I do need to look and make sure I'm timing everything with everybody else, that I can do that. But there's sometimes things are so complicated. I tend to learn things on the guitar that are not written for the guitar. They might be written for the marimba or something else. And it just doesn't lay well on the guitar. Technically, it's very difficult. So on things like that, I have to really know how to play it well enough that I could internalize the rhythms well enough, or be able to at least look away and play at the same time. So for me, this is a new experience, and I'm just not sure what, I know it's going to be fun, but I'm going to be anxious.
And there was another question there. Yeah, you.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward, but how did you learn to write and play such complex music?
Well, the thing is, I always was attracted to the sound of the music that my dad wrote, so for example, like I said before, I didn't really listen to the radio until I was 12. So when I did hear stuff on the radio, my first thought was, where's the rest of it? Where's all the other stuff? Yeah. So I was used to hearing all kinds of instruments doing complicated things, and like layers of stuff. So when I heard other things that didn't have it, I thought, oh well, I guess this is just what I like. And when I gravitated towards writing music, it just seemed natural to do stuff that was similar to the stuff I grew up hearing. And the technical side that's required to play it, that's just hours of practice. There's no fast way to do it. You have to put the time in. But the challenge of learning how to talk to other people and understand what the terms are, so that you can communicate. Everybody, if you're doing complicated stuff, you all have to know how to talk about defining what it is that you're doing. And if you don't have musical terms, you have to have at least some baseline way to communicate it. And so that's going to be your challenge if you want to get into that stuff, is you need to learn enough to be able to communicate it to a rhythm section or other musicians about what it is and how you feel or interpret the rhythm of the complicated thing. But technical stuff like picking and all that stuff, now there's so many resources online where you could learn to play technical things on the guitar, which I wish I would have had. There's a thing called Cracking the Code. Have you ever seen that? The guy, he's got every style of picking that you could ever learn on the guitar, he teaches. And he plays, very complicated, difficult stuff. And there's other players that also teach. And they do stuff that it's like the equivalent of the Olympics. If you saw what people did in the 20s versus what people do now for like the long jump or whatever. The guys that are doing this picking stuff now are doing stuff that was inconceivable 20, 30, 40 years ago. But now it's like a 12-year-old kid that can do it because he learned it from YouTube, watching it 10 hours a day. And it's wild. But, long story short, you have great resources out there. It's up to you to make something good out of it.
Nice. Yeah, there's a few in the back, right in the back, sir, in the black shirt, I think.
It's hard enough to fathom Frank's music, I suppose, but when it comes to soloing, he never played the same solo twice. So what was your approach on that?
Was an interesting dilemma because the way I look at it is his style of playing is not traditional rock guitar playing, although it certainly does rock. He is an improvisational player, but he's a composer at heart. So what he has is this vocabulary and a total knowledge of the harmonic content and the rhythmic content. So he's able to pull from anything at any time. And he had enough command of the instrument to play what he was hearing in his head. So he was able to react to the music, and that's a very different thing to do than say, okay, now it's solo time. A lot of times you'll see a soloist play and the band just kind of pulls back and they're just a simple support. That's not how my dad's solos worked. He was always having some intricate conversation with the drummer. And so for me, the challenge has always been to build up enough of an understanding of what that vocabulary is so that I could play in a way that is evocative of his style, but still be myself in the process of doing it. So I'm not having to regurgitate already pre-learned licks. I phrase them through the filter of what I know is his vocabulary. And I am able to improvise in a way that sounds close to my dad's music enough so that the listener can feel like it's still in context to the music versus me just playing whatever I want to play in a different style within a Zappa song. I don't really like that fit so much. I will do it sometimes on certain songs. I will just take it to a complete other place. But oftentimes if I hear people playing my dad's music and they're playing a real fusion style solo over like Black Napkins or something, I'm like, next. I don't really care to hear it because I would like to hear somebody try to be closer to the idea that he's doing because that's more interesting to me. That just in general, when people cover my dad's music, I think a lot of people decide, let me see what I can do to this to change it. And I don't like that approach because if you put it in context to classical music, you're not going to have an orchestra going, okay, Beethoven's Fifth. What am I going to do to change it? Oh yeah, let's get a rapper. Yeah, Beethoven, yeah, one time fill it. It's like, I don't want to hear that. Maybe I do, but, It's
a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, but my point is, I like it when somebody takes the time to try to immerse themselves in the music and play it in a way that is commensurate with the way that it was done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, yes, please.
I liked it when he had a story on the stage.
Yeah.
From, did you eat your high school diploma? And so much laughing about it. And pajama people and the interaction between Roos and Frank.
Yeah.
I loved it, especially his music, but also the humor.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoy that, and that is definitely a big part of the music. And sometimes people get confused because he would write music that's beautiful and complex and serious, but he would also give people a layer of humor because some people can't follow the sophisticated elements of the music, but they get into the humor and then they also enjoy the music as a result. And so it was kind of a very ingenious way to broaden his potential audience. But the thing about my dad was that he made music that he liked, and if other people liked it, that was a bonus. So he would make records like Thing Fish, and and some people would hear that and say, I never want to hear this again. And then other people might hear it and go, this is my favorite album of Frank Zappa of all time. Mm-hmm. And whenever I meet those people, I definitely look at them sideways like, what's up with you?
Well, it was in Paris that Frank once told me that the whole office was begging him, literally begging him, not to release The Man from Utopia. Because please don't release that. Yeah. And he just said, I think I'm the one to decide about that one. But if the radio is broken, isn't acquired taste.
Well, but see, here's a good example. The radio is broken. That's one song that has very strange vocals, right? Yeah. But the song that has the strangest vocals to me, and they're most hilarious, and I have a good story about this, is I Come From Nowhere. So the vocals on that song are so hideous, but they're on purpose. And when he recorded them, we used to have an intercom system in the house where he could use the phone and he could dial from the studio to another room in the house. So he called up to my room and he said, you've got to come to the studio. And it was like 3 a.m. He said, you've got to come to the studio and you got to hear this song. And so I came down and he pressed play. And I'm listening to these vocals coming out of the speakers. And if you've heard the song, they're completely out of tune. And it's like this weird lounge singing. And there's very strange lyrics. But my dad thought this was the ultimate thing to perpetrate on the audience. Like somebody's going to listen to this and have to have this thought of, what am I listening to and why? Why would anyone do this? And so he thought it was so funny that he actually, he was in this chair that was like a really puffy chair, and he just kind of melted and spilled onto the floor, and he was beating the ground as certain parts of this song were happening. Because to him, it was so absurd, and he just loved the sound of it being so terrible. And then it has this amazing guitar solo, So everything has a purpose. But when you do it with this joy of like absurdity, that is, that's exactly why he made the music. He was going to love it no matter what. But if other people could get on that same wavelength, then that was, something he enjoyed. But if you haven't heard the song, listen to it and you'll know what I'm talking about.
It's on Ship, right?
It's on Ship Arriving Too Late.
Yeah. And if you like that song, go back in the catalog and check out a song by the same vocalist, Roy Estrada, called In the Sky.
Yeah.
That's the same category.
Yes, yeah. It's like a doo-wop thing. Yeah. But he's...
also out of tune.
Do you know what the reference of 190 is? All right, so Ko is an expert on stuff, and this one you'll get a kick out of this. In the Sky, they do this doo-wop thing, and at some point he's singing 190, and it's very whiny, and you wonder why is he saying 190? And my dad had apparently told him that he needed to establish his weight at least 190. He couldn't go above 190 because it wasn't going to work out too well, for him. He was whining about 190.
And the rest is history, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We got 2 minutes left. So short question, short answer, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Yes, please. You, sir. Yeah. No, sorry. Then you, and then you. I feel like Jerry Springer now.
Are you playing some stuff from the Grand Wazoo?
That's a secret.
Not exactly, but yes, yes. There is something. You'll hear a story about how it is the Grand Wazoo, but it's also something you will have never heard before. So,
yes, please. Last question.
Yeah, I really love the radio's broken. And could you elaborate a little bit about the geometric shapes Frank used to see? And
sure.
But you use it also in your soloing to try to approach.
Well, from what I understand, he liked to think about moving air molecules. He called his guitar solos air sculptures, and so he would, when you're on a stage, the lights are in your eyes. Like here, there's some lights that are showing the audience so we can see you. But in a show, typically that's not the case. We're kind of blinded and we see that there's some people out there. We can't necessarily see features all that well. So he would be playing and you would see this look on his face where he's just kind of staring into the ether. And that's probably when he's imagining these air molecules turning into whatever shapes he's imagining them to be. But really, it's like a better way to describe it for the average comprehension is just being in the zone. When he could freely just react to the music and just play stuff, then you have the results like Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, the stuff that's on those improvised solos on that record. Nobody played like that. The sound and everything, So if I'm going to try to do stuff like that, it comes more from first having enough of a rhythmic diversity that I can apply to the guitar, and I have to work really hard at making a way for myself to not repeat the same ideas. Like he was very good at just stream of consciousness playing and different rhythms that he could react to in the moment. And the hardest thing to do as a guitar player is to actually listen and react. Sometimes I actually have a piece of tape on my pedal board that just says listen. And as much as I look at that, I still forget to listen because you can just be on autopilot. You're just playing. It's very easy to just run your fingers as a guitar player. But when you're connecting ideas that work in the moment with the music that's happening, that's when it becomes a magical thing. And everybody can kind of sense when something like that happens.
Thank you very much. I want to close with a short personal statement. Is that You're only the boss in your own band, Dweezil. Don't forget that. And I'm much older than you. Yeah, really, it's true. I'm older than he is. And you can tell, huh? No.
So surprising.
Well, I have some family members who thought that you were way younger than you actually are. Yeah. He met my daughter for the first time when he was over at the house this week, and she ran into the house and went to my wife, and she says, "He's cute."
She'll love that you're telling that story, by the way.
Well, you are cute. I mean, and like what Frank said about Terry Bozzio, you remember? The fact that he's cute doesn't mean he can't play.
Yeah.
So, it's an actual quote that I have on tape. No, but all kidding aside, I mean, since there are young people in the audience, which I think is extremely nice, I just want to emphasize that I think as a fan who has seen Frank Zappa live many, many times and had the huge privilege of knowing him, I can truly say that the role that Dweezil plays as an ambassador, not just to go out there and play Frank Zappa music, but also have this vibe to bring this kind of music, and it does not only go for his Frank's music, but also his own music. That Dweezil is a fantastic ambassador to bring that tradition not only to a younger audience, but also to take it a step further with his own talent as both a guitar player, band leader, and composer. And as a fan who started out listening to Frank in 1970, I'm kind of grateful that you do that, because it's you do it perfectly well. You're the #1 ambassador in my book for Zappa music, and with Zappa music I mean Frank and Dweezil music. So thanks for being with us, man.
Well, thanks for having me. Yes.
Dweezil Zappa.
Yeah. I will. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to also tell you that later this year, I've been going through a bunch of video archives of things that we've done over the years playing my dad's music. And we filmed some stuff on the last tour. So we are going to have a lot of concert material that will come out on my YouTube channel and on my website. But I've filmed probably, 40 concerts, and we're going through stuff. There's over 100, maybe 120 different songs, and that's without mentioning the repeats. Like when we play a show, we might all play like Inca Roads and Zombie Wolf and some of the hits. But I have just tons and tons of stuff, and it's just never been seen. So later this year, we're going to start opening up Pandora's box with all that stuff.
And hopefully, because our friend Andrew Moorman is there, he's in Dweezil's entourage. He's the filmmaker on this tour for Dweezil, and he's also going to film tonight. So it will all be recorded tonight, and then later we'll see what we can do with that. So you'll be witnessing an historic evening of Zappa music. And that's what I wanted to say about the young people. For me, it has the vibe of going to a real Zappa show. And in these days, it's Zappas, Frank and Dweezil. Once again, Dweezil, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll probably see you tonight.
Yeah, I'll probably see you there.
And I'll see you there.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.